The sun was slowly sinking behind the ridge when Jack turned off the highway onto a narrow mountain road. The wheels of his RV rumbled over the rocky ground, leaving behind a long, exhausting path filled with dust, dangers, and encounters that had etched themselves into his memory forever. Far behind him were cities, motels, bars, and other people's problems, inevitably pulling him into fights, gunfire, and choices between looking away or risking his life once again. But today he turned aside. Not to run, not to hide, just time. Time to press the brakes and allow himself to breathe quietly. Before him stretched a valley with a lake shimmering in the evening light. The water was so calm it resembled a mirror carved into the rock. Around it stood pine trees, like sentinels, and beyond them rose peaks gradually cloaked in the purple glow of the setting sun. "Well, buddy," Jack said, glancing at Baxter. "Looks like we'll stay here." The dog wagged his tail and climbed onto the seat, staring into the open space. His bark would have been unnecessary in this silence, so he let out a low woof and sat back down, seemingly agreeing. Jack parked the RV right at the water's edge. He turned off the engine, and suddenly, everything fell silent. There was nothing left but the sound of wind through the trees, a distant bird call, and the lapping of the lake. Where fish occasionally broke the surface, he stepped out and stretched his legs. The air was fresh, cooler than down below, filled with the scent of pine resin and damp earth. Jack felt that he was breathing not just oxygen, but something more, as if the freedom he had been searching for all these years was itself in the air. That he set up a simple camp, unfolded a folding chair, pulled out a small portable stove, and placed a pot. Not because he needed comfort, it was a small ritual. To organize the space around him, to show himself, "Here I will stay for a while." Baxter immediately ran along the shore, chasing seagulls and sniffing every bush. His paws left marks on the wet sand, and he seemed to laugh in his dog way. Jack watched him and realized, despite everything he had been through, there were moments in the world worth living for. He took out an old fishing rod, bought at a roadside shop a few weeks ago. It had been lying under the seat, lost among tools and a coil of wire. Jack wasn't an avid fisherman, but the idea of waiting now appealed to him. To sit by the water, watch the float, and let thoughts ripple like the waves. He cast his line into the water, sat in the chair, and stared at the lake's surface. Time dissolved. There were no hours or minutes. There was only silence, the gentle buzz of evening insects, and his own thoughts. Jack had always believed that the road was more than asphalt and miles. It was a test revealing who you really are. When he set out on his journey, he thought he was running from the past, from mistakes, from himself. But the longer he traveled, the more he realized, you can't run from yourself. Every stop, every adventure, every night in a car or fight in a roadside diner was an escape, but a path to finally confront yourself face to face. He recalled the roads, the flatlands where the sun scorched so intensely even the asphalt seemed molten, small towns with rusty gas stations and silent bartenders, night highways where the headlights of oncoming cars were the only proof that the world hadn't frozen forever, and every encounter left its mark. The man who asked for a ride but turned out to be a liar. The gang on the highway, thinking his life was cheap. The woman on the roadside, running from her demons. And the truck driver who survived only because Jack once again decided, "No, I won't drive past this." Each of them left not just a memory, but a question. Why do I do this? Why do I intervene every time, even knowing I might die? Jack looked at the lake. The float drifted lazily on the waves. His life had too much movement, too much running, and too little peace. Perhaps the answer was here, in the water reflecting the sky, in the mountains that didn't rush anywhere because they had stood for centuries. At tea night, he sat by a small fire. The flames cast reflections on his face, and Jack thought about the road. How many miles had he traveled? How many times had he risked his life? And most importantly, why? He understood that every stop, every adventure, was part of something greater, as if the universe itself had guided him through dangers to ultimately bring him here, to this lake, this fire, this silence. Maybe the meaning is to keep walking until you find a place to stop, he muttered. Or maybe the journey itself is the meaning. Baxter lifted his head and looked at him, as if agreeing. You know, buddy, Jack said, tossing him a bone. Maybe I don't even know what I'm looking for. But as long as we're together, as long as there are roads, nights, and sunrises like this, that's enough. He fell silent and stared into the fire. Sparks rose and dissolved among millions of stars hanging over the mountains. The next morning, he decided to stay another day. No plans, no routes. Just him, the dog, and this lake. He sat on the shore, drawing with a stick in the sand, realizing he hadn't felt so free in a long time. Here, in the mountains, there was no need to make decisions under pressure. No gunfire in the dark, no fight or run choices. There was only truth, which you cannot hide. You are who you really are, Jack smiled. He knew that eventually he would have to hit the road again. The world wouldn't leave him in peace for long. But for now, he allowed himself the luxury of planning nothing but he sat by the water and thought. Maybe this is where true freedom begins, not where you save someone or fight enemies, but where you can simply be yourself. Jack didn't yet know if he would stay long, or if tomorrow he would start the engine and drive onto the highway again. But he knew one thing for sure. The road would always be there, always waiting. And for now, he had the right to silence. The fire went out. Baxter slept at his feet. The night mountains stood still, as if embracing him. And Jack felt, for the first time in a long while, that he wasn't running, fighting, or searching. He was simply living.